Hi, I'm Amy.
I'm Laura.
And we are TwoPaperGirls. Today we're going to do a review of Sargasso by Rhys. It's one of our favourite uni books that we've read so far.
I did a review of Jane Eyre about a month ago, and this book is a prequel to Jane Eyre. The author has taken a character from Jane Eyre, well, a couple of characters from Jane Eyre, and looked at what their lives may have been before, but it's a very different book to Jane Eyre.
The plot follows a young girl called Antoinette as she grows up throughout her life. She lives in the Caribbean near the wide Sargasso Sea, which is like a part of the Atlantic that connects the Caribbean where she lives to England. And she grows up and she gets kicked out of her house by the evil people who do not like her. And then she marries a man called Mr. Rochester, and then she goes to live in England. It's hard not to spoil this book when you're given a plot summary.
It's a very short book, and if you've read Jane Eyre, which I think you should before reading this, and you know how it's all going to end anyway. No, I really enjoyed this. It's a very different tone to what you expect. When I heard it was a prequel to Jane Eyre, I sort of thought it'd be like Jane Eyre but in the Caribbean, but it's basically all about race and that sort of thing, and slavery, because her parents are plantation owners, but a new law comes in which means they can't keep slaves anymore, which basically means they go bankrupt, her father dies. Basically all of the black community that live near them absolutely hate them because, well, quite obvious reasons, all of their history, and it says a lot in the book that it's better to be a black Negro than a white Negro, and that is kind of the whole premise of the book. It is quite racist and offensive, so that might be a trigger warning for some people, but it's not too bad. It's making a good point, I think.
It was quite shocking to read.
Yeah.
Like, if I was reading it like at university in the library with people around and I was reading it, and it like says the N word quite a lot, and I was like, I felt a bit uncomfortable because it's really like they're really racist. Well, people are racist towards them because they're white Creoles. They don't fit in with the black population. They don't fit in with the white English either. They're like the lowest of the low in the social order, and no one likes them. And it's really sad because her friend just disowns her, and she's really mean to her just because of her race, and it's really sad.
Yeah, it is. It's really, like you say, it's kind of upsetting to read, and also we had to have a lecture on the book and a seminar, and it was kind of strange because you want to quote the book, but you don't want to use the offensive language. You'll be like, oh, when that bit happens, and you don't want to say what actually happens because it's just really awful. But yeah, so I think it has to be treated maturely. I think that's why it's like a university book and not like GCSE or something. But yeah, it's also got quite a few Gothic elements to it, which we were focusing on in our seminars. Like, she sees a creepy man in her house who's like a weird ghost thing that she sees through the boards, and when Mr. Rochester, he always feels like there's something watching him, and there's fire and candles being blown out
and zombies.
Yeah, there's weird zombie things.
Guys, they're not really zombies. There's like this thing called like an obeah.
Yeah.
And it's like this weird, it's basically like voodoo.
Yeah.
But like they don't talk about zombies, it's like zombie without the E on the end. And it's all superstitious. And like
Mr. Rochester gets all freaked out by it all, and he has moments where he'll just like run off in the rain in the middle of the night and he'll come back and doesn't remember what happens, and yeah, it's all very creepy, but not. It's kind of like Jane Eyre though. Jane Eyre has a lot of Gothic in it.
Yeah. And Antoinette's like really cool. She's like linked to the wilderness.
Yeah.
Like, everything's wild and she's wild and the Caribbean's wild, like, and it's just it's a really good book. It's really vivid. Like when you read like a passage of like description, it's really like fiery.
I think that was one of my favourite things about it, was how well it was written. Like there were just quotes where I actually highlighted them, and all the books we've read this so far in university, has never been one where I'm like, wow, that's a really good point, and I'll highlight it, because that only really happens with like John Green and stuff like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I think this book was a surprise because when it was on the syllabus, I thought it'd be like older than it actually is. It was written in 1966, so it's pretty recent. Like since we've been reading all the medieval stuff and like Jane Eyre and everything. When we actually got round to reading this, and it was written in language that we could understand, and it was just generally put together in more of like a modern kind of novel way that we'd expect to read. I think that's why we enjoyed it quite a lot.
Yeah, I think it's like a must read in general. It's part of like the literary canon, and you can really see why. But I think a lot of those books are really intimidating, and this is one that's really easy to pick up. I do think it's best to have read Jane Eyre, but I think it would also definitely be enjoyable if you haven't read Jane Eyre.
Yeah, I think you need to read Jane Eyre first, just because the way that this subverts everything from Jane Eyre. If you went into Jane Eyre feeling the way about the characters as you do in this, then Jane Eyre probably wouldn't have. It'd lose something.
I think now if I reread Jane Eyre, I would just believe that everything that happens in this book is what happened before Jane Eyre. But obviously it's just the author like sort of writing fan fiction, just playing on it. It's not what actually happens. But if I read Jane Eyre now, every time Mr. Rochester talks about his past or Bertha is in it, I would just think of this book. So yeah, it's probably best to read Jane Eyre first, which is also really good. Check out my review.
But then that just says it's a good book. Like, this is a good book. It writes back perfectly. It just makes you believe everything it says. And how many stars did we give it? I think we gave it 4, didn't we?
I think we gave it 4, but now I'm talking about it, it's more of a 4.5. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think if I reread it, I'd give it a 5. But the first time you read it, you're just trying to like get through it for university, so you kind of rush it. But I think if I like properly...
I think I might need to reread this just for the exam.
Yeah, same. That's all we have to say about Why Sargasso Sea. We hope you like this little joint review. We'll do more of them if you do. Comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye! And then the new law has come in, which meant they can't keep slaves anymore. That was scary. Close. You have a monster.
I have a monster in my wardrobe.